This conference will now be recorded.
Anyone can speak, guys. I would love to know what are your expectations about Cisco ACI. What do you think this particular course Cisco ACI is going to cover? No one?
Hello.
Yeah. What's your name? How do you pronounce your name? Is it J is to be pronounced, or it's going to be pronounced as Ozu because in Spanish?
It's not Spanish, it's Portuguese name.
It's Portuguese. So how do you pronounce your name? Is it Josu Cunha?
Josué Cunha.
Josue Cunha. All right. Fine, Josue, my dear friend. Please go ahead. What is your expectation?
I have no idea what is ACI. I'm here just to learn it, to see how I can get an advantage for the software or whatever it is. I'm here just to learn it.
Great. Thank you so much, Josue, for joining. And yes,
No problem.
this is absolutely a new learning for us.
Yes.
Anybody else? Before I start, would really appreciate, your expectation will help me to deliver you what you are looking for. And definitely I will be able to answer not many questions from you guys about your expectations. No? All right, then let's start. Thank you so much, Josue and Nav, for telling your expectation. Now, let me tell you this particular course. Are really having a hard time. Okay, Anirban. All right, no worries. So, is it that your mic is not working, Anirban? All right, fine. No worries then. I can see that your mic is not muted, but probably
Hello.
There is. Oh, I can hear you.
Yeah, this is Kamlesh Nandagopal.
Kamlesh Nandagopal, thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is like since this is application centric infrastructure, like as the name indicates, application centric, like we are going to take the intelligence of the router and we are going to place it in the center, I mean in the cloud, and instead of manually configuring each and every routers, like we are going to control from the cloud. Like cloud is going to act as a centralized place where we can control all the network devices.
Okay, that's good. Sounds good. All right. So, it's your statements, your expectations are really helping me out.
I
Okay,
can say
back
it is like SDN and NFV, like it involves SDN and NFV, I guess, like where we are controlling the network devices with the help of software.
That is true. With the help of a controller that is having an application running. That's right. Okay, guys. So over here we have our friends also who have just done VXLAN lab, right? So while discussing about VXLAN, many times I spoke about ACI. Now, in a simple language, what is ACI? ACI is nothing but Cisco's version of software defined network, that is called SDN. Now, today, SDN is a buzzword. SD access is a buzzword. SD-WAN is also a buzzword with us. The beauty of all these buzzwords is one simple thing, that is single point of MGMT. With the help of controller, That is, in a large network, instead of going
Testing.
up, yes, please.
Sorry.
Anyone?
Is my voice audible now?
Anirban, perfectly. Please go ahead. I was
Okay.
looking for you.
Sure. I was just testing my mic. My apologies to interrupt. Please carry on.
No problem. So, can you please let me know about your expectation, your knowledge about
Correct.
AC?
And I have a very beginner's knowledge in the ACI because in our infrastructure currently we are using the ACI, been into troubleshooting with the Cisco TAC on multiple locations, but then I do not really have the overall um, overview and how to troubleshoot, especially when it comes with the routing between the ACI and the external environment. So
Beautiful.
ideally I would
Mhm.
love to know about the ACI infrastructure.
Wonderful. Can you tell me which company you're working in?
Currently working for TTEC or
T-Tech,
Teletech. Yes.
Teletech. Where is it? Is this organization?
Uh, this is the headquarters are based out in US, Denver,
Okay.
Colorado, but we are operating out of 23 countries and overall an employee of count of 65,000 plus.
65,000 plus. Wow.
Yes.
Awesome. Extremely good. I'm so delighted to know this. A big organization.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
in India, we are just based out in Hyderabad.
all right. So are you in Hyderabad?
Not at the very moment because of the lockdown, just working out from my hometown.
Okay, in India, right?
In India, yes.
All right. So this particular time, the reason is about the time. I believe this particular time is convenient to you.
Absolutely, because I'm just finishing up my daily chores or the US business hours, which just got over for me about 10 minutes ago.
All right, all right. So you're working in US shifts. Fine.
Correct. Yes.
Mhm. So hope listening your voice, it looks you are not exhausted. Thank you so much for joining.
Not at all. I'm very much excited to listen to the entire session over here.
Welcome, welcome, Anirban. I'm excited too about this particular topic
Thank you.
and seeing all the wonderful guys over here. Okay, so let's continue, guys. Any moment,
Sure.
if you want. Yeah, you're welcome. Any moment, guys, if you want to interrupt, want to say something, please do absolutely free. I love to get interrupted because your questions, your interruptions are really very much meaningful to me. All right. So I was telling you about the buzzword. ACI is another buzzword. What is common in all these beautiful buzzwords called SDN, SD access or SD-WAN is they eliminate us from hop by hop approach of configuring our network devices. Well, this particular buzzword SDN is a buzzword for our data center technologies. And Cisco has redefined this particular buzzword called software defined networking into Cisco's old terminology called ACI, which stands for application centric infrastructure. When I'm saying this is application centric infrastructure, this means it is definitely a infrastructure which based on a different setup, based on a different operating system, and the entire configuration is through our controller, right? In this particular technology, the switches are used. What switches? Layer 3 switches are used, and they are arranged their arrangement is also different. Unlike our traditional network where switches are arranged in core distribution and access layer, and there is redundant arrangement between all the switches. Well, all the dear friends who already are done with VXLAN, right? They now know the arrangement of the switches, and the arrangement is known as spine and leaf arrangement. So my very first page is almost exhausted. Let me go to the next. We are going to look at into technical introduction into ACI. Guys, this is ACI is nothing but this is our software defined networking. Software defined networking means you can simply say it is a controller based configuration of our entire network. Right now, introduction to a new technology. Whenever a new technology comes, a new technology is definitely going to come along with certain new terminologies. So over here, guys, you are going to look at into various new terminologies and new definition of old terminologies as well. Right? So the terminologies are, for example, VXLAN. This is just being covered earlier. The terminologies we are going to look at into GPO. Well, ISIS. Almost everyone know about intermediate system to intermediate system, a routing protocol. We will be using it. Well, so many new terminologies and protocols as well. For example, in this particular learning, you will be getting to see about some beautiful control plane protocol like COOP. Well, ISIS is also going to play a significant role with regards to control plane functionality. Let me tell you, the beauty of ACI is zero touch deployment. Now the question comes is, what is this zero touch deployment? That is, in this case, the devices, that is your switches, you need not touch any of the switch. The only day one touch is ensuring that the switches are connected to each other in a specific topology and they are just powered on. That's it. Rest everything, all entire configuration is going to be done from a single box. We are going to come to this. Well, automation, agility, mobility, orchestration, applicability, programmability, visibility, and all these, terminologies are.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I love to get interrupted. Go ahead.
Yeah, would you mind go to the previous slide? COOP policy is there, right? So COOP policy is basically we used in Nexus, right? That control plane policy, right? So, but I could find
no. COOP policy.
By default, it is there in Nexus, like 5K and 7K is also the COOP policy is there, right? For
policy.
But I could find Council of Oracle Protocol. But,
no. One thing. First of all, this is not a policy. This is a protocol. This is your control plane protocol.
Yeah.
The full name is Council of Oracle Protocol. This has nothing to do with the organization called Oracle, which is into database. Right? I'll tell you what is the purpose of this COOP.
Yeah, as of my knowledge, in my experience, I think some predefined policy has already been implemented in Nexus into the COOP package. So it should control some sorts of traffic. If we want, we can disable or enable it, I believe.
Well, in Nexus, I have never seen COOP as a policy.
Okay.
Right? COOP, by the way, is a protocol. And this protocol is a communication protocol which ensures the configuration information are transmitted. So I will cover this COOP in a control plane protocol discussion.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Right? Okay. Welcome to the guys who have just joined, Saket and Siddhant. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm excited to have you guys early morning over here. As I said, anytime. Thank you, Saket. Thank you very much for joining us so early morning. Okay, guys, I really don't want to market this particular product called ACI. My holistic intention is to deliver the technology, but slowly and slowly I'm going ahead towards the technology. What is ACI? Application centric infrastructure. Guys, anytime if you happen to see that I am marketing the product, please stop me. Right now, what is we are going to look at into the most important thing called software defined networking. There are various activities which we will be performing, the various configurations which we will be performing. We will be talking very much about multi-tenancy. We will be talking about very much another buzzword in the industry called micro segmentation. Right? Ease of deployment is true in case of ACI. As I just said, this is going to provide us a zero-touch deployment of our entire fabric. That is, no need to go into individual device, individual switch to configure him. You just need access to one device to configure entire fabric, and I'm saying from day one. Day zero task definitely you have to do, and day zero task is to connect the devices in a specific topology and power them on. That's it. Is there in our SDN. Okay, as I said, my intention is not at all to market this particular product. My intention is to talk about it. And guys, I really want to relieve you from tremendous network operations job, right, of troubleshooting the individual switch in terms of why traffic is not flowing. This is what happens. Well, I have worked into network operations for many years. I know the trouble of and the pain of detecting the issue, and that too when we don't have the network diagram ready in our hand. What we need to do in case of network operation, when a traffic is not flowing, we always follow hop by hop approach to look at into the culprit. Well, a knowledge of ACI will take you out from this hub by hub approach, not only in terms of configuration, but also in terms of troubleshooting. From a single point, you can find out the problem. What does ACI typically mean to a network admin? To a network admin, the terminologies. This gentleman right over here, he is our typical network admin, who knows about hop by hop approach, who knows about troubleshooting each and every individual device. He always take it a painful job to log in into individual device and do the configuration there, even by copy and paste or modification, blah blah. But this gentleman who is our ACI admin, what he does, he just follow an architecture and troubleshoot and configure based on that particular architecture. What he says is that I am going to use an ACI policy model wherein I have two things. One is the physical and other one is the logical, which we will be looking for. He says that instead of your typical 3-tier architecture, I'm going to say a 3-tier application. Well, by calling these are going to be our very frequently used buzzwords in terms of our configuration. But guys, don't bother that the application web app and database applications are really the one which we are going to configure. Well, okay, I'm just getting some clicks. So, but during our configuration, we will be ending our and host machines. I'm sorry. We will be configuring our and host machines. They may be the virtual or the physical machines into certain logical containers, and those containers are known as endpoint groups. Our endpoint groups will be based on, say, the name of the application, which we want that these and hosts or endpoints, they should be classified into. So the intention of ACI is a proper classification of our end machines in terms of specific applications which they are covering and catering to, and probably this is the reason Cisco started calling it as application-centric infrastructure. That is, the applications are running where they are running on our end machines, and we want to focus from day one, from a network point of view, we want to classify them into specific groups. Well, this is theoretical as of now for you, but it is very much practical when you will start configuring it. And of course, I know that you are going to say ACI seems all about application, right? And we are not application guys. Guys, I'm with you. So do I. I'm not an application engineer. I really do not know how to develop, troubleshoot the application. We are all network engineers. So that is the reason ACI is all about networking. Please don't get confused by the terminology, very first word called application, right? Don't get confused that you are, or I'm over here to teach you something about application. I am not at all aware of how to configure, troubleshoot the applications, right? In the network, so web application, app application, database application, so many things. I'm with you guys. So ACI is all about application. So in case if the terminology ACI confuses you guys, just say bye to this terminology and simply say software defined networking. That is industry's buzzword. ACI is just Cisco's buzzword. Once you will convinced about that we are defining our network based on a software, and this software is nothing but going to be configured from a controller software, then it will be very clear. Well, coming over to the architecture. But before that, please allow me to tell you what kind of switches do we use in case of an ACI, right? Guys, we are using special switches by Cisco for the purpose of configuring our ACI infrastructure, right? And those switches are nothing but, they belong to one single family, Nexus 9K. And in Nexus 9K, predominantly we do have two variants. One is called, hello, why pause sharing is okay. One is called Nexus 9500 series, and other is known as Nexus 9300 series. They are from the Nexus family, but they are not running the typical Nexus operating system. Sorry, it is not the one which you will happen to see in these switches for the purpose of your software defined network. So what do they have is they are going to have a totally a separate operating system called ACI operating system. Well, some of these models are capable to get an XOS or ACI operating system, but not all. For the details, Walter Pereira, my dear friend, has arrived. Thank you so much, Walter, for joining.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity.
Welcome, my dear friend. I'm sorry, the session is already started. But any moment, if you feel that you are losing the touch, please interrupt me. I love to get interrupted.
Thank you, sir. I will.
You are welcome, my friend. Very well. Okay. So some of the switches, they of our Nexus 9K family, they are good enough to run either NXOS or ACI mode. But in case if you run them for NXOS, then please do not expect them to provide you software defined networking. Right? You have to go for the box by box approach of configuring them, and you cannot avail a centralized controller based configuration. All right, what I said, it is my holistic responsibility to show you the switches, Nexus 9K family of switches, which we are going to use in this. And I would like to say thank you very much to our dear friend Cisco for providing us a beautiful tool called Cisco 3D. Where is it? I say I have to take it out, get it. All right, and put it over here. The GoToMeeting actually hides my browser tab, which you may not be seeing. All right, Cisco 3D interactive catalog, guys. It is available in two variants. You can download this any moment as a desktop install or run online web. I love to run it online web. So this is going to give us a good presentation and interaction with various Cisco devices to be used specifically in our data center. You just need to go to the product catalog over here. CX stand for customer experience, right? And definitely thank you so much to Cisco for this. Now the switches, under the switches we will go to Nexus 9000 series, the top end switches, right, for our data center. And I would like to show you the three switches of our Nexus 9500. Say, let's talk about this switch. And well, all my dear friends who have already joined me earlier and done the previous topics, the day one session of our data center was on understanding Nexus 9500, 9300, 7000, 5000, 2000, right, devices. So this is a device 9504. Why we call it as 4? Because it has got 4 different slots for the line cards. This is a switch which we will be using. Let us take a look on this switch from front. right? And from its rear, we can see something, and something is hidden. Well, we call these switches as fabric switches, right? I would love, in case if someone interrupt me, to look at into the anatomy of it. Otherwise, it's being covered on special request from you guys. I can log in inside this, not log in. I can remove couple of components and can show you inside story or anatomy of this particular switch. So guys, if you know it, good. If you do not know it, I would love you guys to browse this. For example, when I say browse it, and something which really is exciting is called fabric module. Well, the component called fabric module, though it's hidden behind the fan trays, the component is a vertical component like this. This is placed for a specific purpose. It is placed to connect, guys, the line cards and the supervisor engine. Well, the line cards are in front of the chassis, quite visible. This is a line card. Well, the supervisor module, it is front of the chassis, bottom we just removed, and this is the supervisor engine, which is brain. Guys, how this particular switch is different in terms of any other switch being introduced by Cisco so far, and it is because of a component called system controller, which is at the rear and placed just below the fan trays, and this is a system controller being explained in detail in our hardware classes. I would love to get it addressed over here as well on special request, and all of you are very special to me. Guys, let me know if you can see this particular screen. I hope my screen is getting refreshed properly.
Yes, we can see that.
I can see it.
All right, because I just got suspected on seeing the GoToMeeting screen. All right, guys, really you need to be very curious to know about this particular switch, right? Well, would appreciate you to browse not only this one, but also Nexus 9300. Oh, let's take 9372PX. This particular switch, guys, this is not a modular switch. This particular switch is your fixed line card based switch, wherein you're going to have fixed line card. Now, one quick thing which you really need to appreciate is, the last ports from 49 to 54, right? I would love if someone can tell me why these numbers are highlighted in yellow.
So these are fabric ports, I believe, and connects to the spine.
That
Or
is
the
absolutely
uplink.
right.
Yep.
That is right. But before this statement of yours, can you tell me? Yeah, please. Yeah. Anybody else? I think someone wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was saying that they are of 40 gig of bandwidth, like port capacity is 40 gig and more.
Absolutely.
QFX.
Absolutely. In case, absolutely right, Saket. in case, guys, with regards to any switch, Cisco switch, if you happen to see numbers highlighted in yellow color, this means the ports are 40 gig ports, right? This is the way Cisco is doing it. Then we can see the form factor is different. They are expecting SFP plugs to be inserted into them, small form factor pluggable, right? You cannot directly plug in cable in these last ports. So the SFPs which you will be using, right, they are called QSFPs, Quad SFP plus to be very specific, which provides you 40 gig of capacity per plug. Well, would love to discuss this in detail, in depth in our hardware classes. All right, so dear friends, we have seen two kinds of switches. You know why? Purposely, because we want to look at into the topology of our dear friend ACI, wherein we want to place these switches in a specific topology, and the name of the topology, a generic name of the topology, is called ACI Spine and Leaf topology, wherein we will have the switches at our first layer, and at a lower layer the connectivity between the switches is going to be like this. This connectivity, by the virtue of the formalizer, not the inventor, Mr. Charles Claus, in the year 1952, well, this topology was first of all introduced by a gentleman called Edwin in the year 1939. Guys, networking is that old, you know. In the year 1952, Bell Telephone Company, right, used this topology to connect its telephone switches. Then, just a decade back, we realized the importance of this topology. And you know what? Prior to this topology, we know that our topology, a typical traditional network topology, asks us to connect the switches in this pattern also. And if we connect switches in this pattern also, then you know what happens? A loop. And for that purpose, a lady by the name of Radia Perlman, we all know her, she introduced a loop avoidance concept called spanning tree protocol. So the objective of this topology is what? The objective of this topology is to erase any kind of layer 2 loop which may cause because of the redundant connectivity between the switches, which may get caused because of east to west connectivity between the switches, or you can call it to be as a lateral connectivity between the switches. So what ACI does is ACI says thank you very much to the lateral connectivity, we don't need you, which doesn't mean that, guys, you know, in VPC, right, we have discussed, this doesn't mean that spanning tree protocol we are going to say goodbye to him. No, spanning tree protocol will still be able to be there, but it will be just an inactive state. Why? Because topology in itself is not providing any loop, layer 2 loop, where spanning tree protocol needs to be activated. So no need to go for root bridge selection, no need to talk about root port or other ports, right, BPDUs and all. But the moment, in case, you know, in case you happen to create a loop, for example, by miscabling, right, spanning tree protocol will get activated and it will take immediate action to block any kind of loop. These layer 2 loops are blocked not only by spanning tree protocol but by some other protocols also, which I will be telling you in detail later on. Okay, I hope you guys are now clear about one simple thing, that is the topology we are going to work on. The topology is called as, if you don't want to call this topology by the name of the developer, not the developer, but formalizer of this topology, you can call this topology to be as your spine and leaf topology. And all my dear friends who have just finished the VXLAN, you guys have already tasted this particular topology. But the pain, guys, which you faced in terms of 6 different tasks, right, of configuring and remembering so many commands configuration in VXLAN, that particular pain you need not take in case of this particular topology, because indeed VXLAN is going to be covered in, is going to be configured in between the spine and the leaf switch, but you know, it is going to be auto configured. You are going to see the beauty of this. Now then the question comes is, from where we are going to do the configuration, guys. For the purpose, we will be deploying a minimum, as per Cisco's recommendation, 3 controllers. Well, in a lab environment, 1 controller is sufficient enough. Those controllers are known as APIC. Say APIC 1, 2, and 3, they are nothing but they are the management controllers. APIC stand for Application Policy Infrastructure Controller, and they are connected to the leaf switches using their 2 of the interfaces. All these controllers, they create a family known as cluster. Unlike a conventional creation of a cluster wherein expectation is the devices need to be connected to each other using their cluster interfaces, that is not the case, guys. These controllers, they also holistically follow the principle of no east to west connectivity. Only connectivity will be north to south. So these controllers, they are going to form a cluster or a family, but without having any cluster interface. Hope you know that some cluster interfaces in our devices are known as L1 and L2 interfaces. No, there is no such. And you know what? These controllers are nothing but actually they are the servers, they are not the switches. For the purpose of your ACI, Cisco has configured, has deployed specific kind of servers known as UCS C-series servers. Okay, we will go more in depth into our controllers. Wilson, okay. What actually we do in our traditional networking, guys, box by box approach, CLI based configuration. We first go to conf P and then we go into the interface. We do specify the IP address, blah, 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 blah things. Let me be very honest with you. You know, initially, once you will see the GUI, right, you will be very much confused, right? That what the heck it is. We are comfortable in configuring in a CLI way now. This is going to give us GUI, and definitely many times a question is going to come in your mind of it's very complicated. Guys, complication can be solved by a systematic approach. Yes, all of us, we are moving from CLI world to the GUI world. So in order to go for it, by the way, my first interaction to the GUI based configuration happened with regards to F5, the load balancer. My first time approximately, well, my first interaction was in the year 2009 to F5 load balancer, 11 years back, right? And my first interaction with was on GUI. I found it a bit difficult, but systematically arranged all the configurations and later on found it to be very simple, easy to configure. The same is there in case of your ACI. Though you can configure it by box and box approach, right, by going into the CLI, but in 99.9% cases, you will not do so because we don't want box by box approach. Traditional networking of Cisco's typical, what we have studied in CCNA, 3-tier architecture: core layer, distribution layer, and access layer is not the one which we are going to talk about. We are going to have just 2 layers inside our ACI fabric, where data plane and control plane will be traversing through, guys. And those layers are going to be, this is going to be an old fashioned. There is always a way to do it better. And Cisco says new terminologies, be ready. Certain old terminologies we also will be there, but this ACI networking says that inside the fabric, just 2 handsome layers. One is known as spine, other is known as leaf. Unlike the pain, guys, my dear friends, you faced in configuring VXLAN on various multiple leaf switches and in the spine switches, configuring BGP, configuring multicast, configuring layer 3 addresses, right? Configuring underlay routing protocol, OSPF, you know, all those. So my dear friends, VXLAN guys, those who have just finished VXLAN, all those configurations like layer 3 configuration of IP addresses, multicast configuration, OSPF configuration, rendezvous point configuration, BGP configuration, and then finally VXLAN configuration. All will be there, but you know, you are just going to be excused to do all these configurations yourself. No need to do any configuration between your spine and leaf switches manually yourself. This entire fabric will get automatically configured with all layer 3 addresses, right? Will with multicast, with OSPF, with BGP, with VXLAN. Layer 3, multicast, OSPF, BGP, VXLAN, and one more routing protocol called ISIS. Right? Who is the initiator? this gentleman will be the initiator. Who is he? He is our controller. Who is he? He is a server. He comes always. He loves to be a part of the family, and the family means in a production environment, minimum 3 members in the family, right? However, in your lab environment, this is can be deployed as a single device, single node, but this node will keep on throwing you messages, requests that I am alone, I'm alone. Okay. Well, we are going to take a deep dive, but I really want to pen down so that you guys can ask me some questions based on your discomfort about this, or if you're not able to understand something what I am trying to tell you. I don't want to take your.
I have a question, sir.
Please, Walter, go ahead, my friend.
Yes, and thank you, by the way. All the content that you're sharing are very basic. So it's very, you are taking us from bottom to up, which is great. So thank you for that. So my question is in regard to the fact that you mentioned that we don't have the side to side connection, right? So I'm wondering if one of those servers they go down, and you said a minimum of 3, but there are deployments like in the lab that you can have only 1. But what happens if we get to a point that we lose 2 servers? We started with 3 because that's the minimum. We are not in the lab, and we lose 2. Of course, they should be monitored. They should have a backup, stuff like that. But what happens if, in a case of a catastrophe, that you lose 2 at once?
Very good question. Thank you so much. That's the reason I always appreciate. Sometimes I miss to tell you guys something. Well, first question, first statement of yours about the site to site. I'm just keeping it aside. I'll just give quick answer to what if we happen to lose 2 of the controllers. All right. First of all, let us understand what these controllers are meant to. These controllers are running one single plane called management plane. They are just responsible for the configuration. Predominantly, they are the servers from where we do the configuration, and they are the repository of those configurations. Besides, they provide us health monitoring data. We can monitor the data and all. The data plane, the control plane, and data plane, guys, we are talking in context of ACI, not in context of SDN. The control plane and data plane is over here. Now, in case if, say, 2 of the controllers, first of all, say both out of 3 controllers, 2 of the controllers, they are gone down, right? Nothing will happen to the control plane traffic, control plane learning tables, and nothing will happen to the data plane traffic. There will be no impact on our data, no impact on our table learning under control plane. This device will take the complete onus of the management plane as well. So our configuration files, etc., will not at all be impacted. Right? Now, then the question comes is, what is the purpose of this number 2 and number 3? Guys, the purpose of number 2, number 3 is a load balancing. What happens is, what is the load balancing over here? The load balancing of the configurations. Hope guys you know about RAID mechanism. Cisco is not officially talking about RAID in this case. Instead, Cisco is using a terminology where the load balancing happens, and that terminology is called sharding. What is a shard? Shard is a small piece, say small piece of a glass, a broken glass. If you break a glass, the small pieces of the broken glass is known as shard. So what happens is, when you do a configuration by logging into any of the controller, the configuration get sharded and spread across multiple controllers. Guys, the RAID mechanism, striping with distributed parity, for example, RAID mechanism number 5. What happens in that case? We know that in case of a RAID mechanism, if any of the disk fails, it is the parity bit which helps us to recover the data, right? Data on other remaining disk. The same concept applies over here as well, because sharding, this RAID is a very common terminology. All of us, I'm sure, must have heard of. The same terminology is being used by Cisco as a concept called sharding for the purpose of recovery of the data. Let the controllers go down. In case if you have one single controller, fine, you are happy. And guys, I'll go another step ahead. Walter, my dear friend, suppose if the one controller left over is also gone down, right? Let it go down as well. No impact will happen to the control plane and to the data plane, right? You may think, oh, in that case, all controllers are down. What about my configuration? My configurations are gone. Guys, in case you get to see this particular catastrophe has happened, please get a new controller and place a new controller, right? One single controller should be good enough. If you bring it back, you can get all your configuration back from where? From this ACI fabric onto the controller. So you need not worry about now doing the configuration back onto this particular controller which you have placed in again. So not only a single controller failure, 2 controller failure, 3 controller failure, all the controller failure can be recovered within minutes. I'll tell you what basic configurations are required in case of controller failure. Okay.
And there is
Walter,
one question
sure,
regarding.
Vipin.
Yeah.
I think this, 1 second, Vipin. I think this suffice to your requirement, Walter?
Totally, sir. Thank you very much. Very enlightening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Walter. And here comes an extended question from our dear friend Vipin. Vipin Gautam, please go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. So usually for redundancy, we see 2 devices, but here we are using 3 servers. So any specific reason why we are using 3? It can be achieved by 2, right?
Okay, I will say RAID mechanism, right? When you go for what RAID mechanism says. RAID, for example, well, I will be covering this RAID mechanism explanation in proper detail under our storage area networking topic. But what does this RAID mechanism number 5 says? This is called striping with distributed parity, right? What we do in that case, we, for example, we deploy 3 disks. Whenever a data comes, we strip the data into pieces, into chunks, and we place the data into various disks. But at the same time, respecting a basic mathematical equation. For example, A plus B is equal to C, right? In this basic mathematical equation, my dear friend, if you know about, say, one variable is missing, for example, this variable is missing, you need to find it out. What you normally do? B is equal to C minus A, right? So why is it so? My intention, guys, is not to confuse you. So in case if it is, please stop me. What happens? We do have certain more scientific algorithms which are running in our RAID mechanism. What he does is, RAID mechanism makes sure that a parity bit is being set in any of the disks so that the recovery of the data becomes possible. Why Cisco thought of ideally deploying 3 different controllers, not only for the purpose of redundancy, but to facilitate the concept called sharding, which is analogous to the concept called RAID mechanism. That is called the creating a distributed parity. Now, what is the meaning of distributed over here? The distributed parity means there is a parity bit which helps us to recover, and this parity bit can be distributed, can be deployed in any of the controller. Prior to this, there was striping with dedicated parity, wherein you really require a dedicated disk for the parity bit storage. Not sure. I'm not confident, Vipin, if I have answered your question, to be honest.
No, I got it completely. And as you said that you will be going more detail in further classes, so that is enough. Thank you. I got it.
Indeed, yes. Indeed, yes. This detailed explanation about RAID mechanism we will be covering in our storage area networking classes as well.
Great, great. Thank you.
You are welcome, my friend.
Yes, one more question here. Can we deploy this APIC controller? I think two APIC in a main DG, another APIC in into our DR, like a disaster recovery center. So in that way, can we deploy?
Shiva, first of all, it is $1 million question, right? Million, right? Dollar question, and answer is yes.
Okay.
That is nothing but, it's a beautiful question I'm telling you guys. That is nothing but we are going to cover this topic in our wonderful topic called multipod.
Okay.
That is, what we are going to do is we will be having 2 pods, 2 pool of devices, separate pool of devices with separate fabric. Okay, saying separate fabric is a wrong. Okay, so but with separate set of spine and leaf switches, and we can say that you guys go to our different floor to different pod, and you guy number 1, you stay over here in this particular pod. So you will have over here 2 different pods, sorry, 2 different pods of leaf and spine switches, right? And you can place 2 controllers here and only 1 controller in 1 pod. This is called, you know, your ACI multipod. Indeed, this is, we are going to learn. Indeed, this is very, very important. Indeed, this is what you will be implementing in your data centers,
So
called multipod.
the terminology pod, can I take in that way? The pod 1 as a data center 1 and the pod 2 as a another data center which is in another location?
Well, I will not recommend you to call pod as one data center and pod 2 as another data center. You can though call them to be as a single data center scaled across 2 different floors in a building.
Or in a building?
In our buildings, right? So for example, you have a multi-story building, 10 floors. The customer entire head office is over there, and they want what? They have approximately say 5,000 or 6,000 users, right? All the users cannot sit in a single floor. Not can even they sit in a 2 floor, 3 floors. They are sitting in 10 floors. So we need to extend our pod and not the data center. So well,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So
but
in
the
that way,
scenario you're saying, just a second, 1 minute, I'll take. The scenario which you are talking about, that is the scenario of multi-site. We call it as a multi-site, where the sites will geographically be separated. And we also have that in our ACI fabric discussion.
yeah.
All right, someone wanted to say something. Go ahead. I think I interrupted someone. Guys, if you have any question. No? Okay, fine, fair enough. Any moment you can ask me in between. Hope this is clear. So this is the one. In our ACI, we have got our spine switches. Let me change my pen color. Okay, these are the spine switches. These are the leaf switches. Predominantly, spine switches are of Nexus 9500 series family, but there are certain spine switches from Nexus 9300 family also, but only some of them. For example, in our Cisco 3D interactive catalog, if you go to,
Sorry, Ashish, this is Vijay. I have one question. Sorry to interrupt you.
no problem, Vijay.
Actually, for example, if have a query in multipod, so if we have two sites in the same city, for example, Bangalore, in multiple areas, so the production site so there is two active data centers. So here we can, is it possible to deploy multipod?
That is right. You know why? In the same city, in the same building, it is recommended to deploy multipod.
Okay.
Instead of multiple site. And you know what? Before talking about multi-site deployment, I will show you the AWS Global Infrastructure Map.
Okay.
Right? Which will help us to understand with regards to what Amazon decides that it is going to be a multi-pod or multi-site scenario.
Oh, okay.
You can Google AWS Global Infrastructure Map, wherein the concept called availability zone and region is being specified, and that will answer this particular question of yours.
Okay, sure.
We have it. Before coming over to multi-site, we will be talking about AWS.
Okay, Ashish, thanks.
Vijay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, well, I believe I'm going to cater to all your questions. This is, guys, this ACI journey is not going to be a short journey. It is a long journey spread over a month, right? We are not going to shorten this journey in few days or weeks. It is going to be minimum of 4 weeks journey with a lot of hands-on exercises. All right. So guys, you can take a look. 9336PQ, this particular switch. though it belongs to your 9300 family, but this switch is called as ACI Spine Switch, right? And in ACI Spine Switch, this is called ACI Baby Spine. In the demonstration labs, normally you can have this particular, but the lab which we will be using our Cisco Nexus 9508 switches as ACI Spine switches. Cheaper, right? So that's the reason in demo labs, but not good enough to cater to a humongous amount of traffic. All right. So there are different ways to configure. The GUI way, graphical user interface way of configuring, the CLI way of configuring, very difficult. I have never dared to configure Fabric using CLI. And RESTful way, that is nothing but REST stands for representational state transfer, which is nothing but which helps us to deploy application programming interfaces, which are nothing but which are plugins, right, to talk to certain scripting languages called your Python, called your Ansible, called your Postman. Postman is nothing but provided by Google, and so many else. This comes under our network automation. So once we are done with our network automation, wherein at least the one language and the basics of one language, for example, Python, we need to learn, and then we will be good enough to configure our entire ACI fabric from our scripting language called Python. And once you are comfortable with Python, you will gain mastery over Ansible, Postman, and other different tools. Then you will not have any issue in configuring ACI. And guys, once your setup is done, it is highly strongly recommended in a data center to configure your fabric using network automation. Any additions, any modifications, upgrades you want to do in your existing ACI fabric will be done through the network automation. Okay. Besides it, the beauty of controller is it provides us a graphical user interface of our entire fabric. You know what? Once your fabric is connected, once your leaf and spine switches are connected, it will give you a complete detailed diagram of your connectivity. It not only will provide you the physical topology, but will also provide you the health score with regards to each and every device. And in the very first lab, we will be checking the health score of our leaf switches, of our spine switches, and of our controllers also. Without ensuring and confirming that our leaf and spine switches and our controllers, they are 100% healthy, we will not go to the configuration. Help us to track the configuration and to troubleshoot. That's what I was telling you. This is going to take the pain of network operations, because on a single GUI you can get a good knowledge information of the failure of the traffic or any other issue. For example, even the configuration is gone wrong, right? You can track it with the help of your fault tab available there, which will give you description, both in a brief summary as well as in detail. Well, there's lot many things: traffic maps, inventory. It is also the inventory of the firmware, so you can get to see what firmware. I'm going to show you all these things, right? Not today. It's almost over, but over a period of time. Well, a good handshaking. It's a very good handshaker as well. Controller is going to do a handshaking with our VMware world. Right, with IBM ServiceNow tool, with Cisco's UCS Director, which is an orchestrator, I'm sorry, OpenStack, Windows, Azure Pack also. So it is a very good handshaker with all other vendors as well. Now, how it is going to happen? This is going to happen with the help of a protocol commonly developed by multi-vendors. What is that protocol? We will see it. Let me keep something in hidden way also. Okay. Well, I would like to bring this particular session to an end with this particular component, which we are going to discuss tomorrow, that is called ACI building blocks. It is a long journey, as I said, so be ready for it. And I would love to hear your questions, your doubts about it now. Aha, I have joined from Oman. It looks weird not being able to. Okay, oh, 1 second. Let me read your full. Ahad, I'm sorry. Okay. The course contents would we follow in this course? Will the course content cover any particular certification exam? Well, Ahad, I'm just answering your questions here for quick and short. Your question about course content, a detail of the course content will be mailed by our dear friend Ryan. I'm sure you were coordinating with him, so he will send you complete details. And still, if you're not satisfied, please revert back. Any kind of detail which you expect will be provided. Your next question is about certification. Yes, this particular knowledge will help you to clear your DCACI, which is data center application centric infrastructure implementation. How much part will be theory and how much lab? Okay, the theory part and lab will go side by side. In terms of percentage, the theory is just 20% and lab for ACI is 80%. Your next question is, in case of lab, will we be using some ACI simulator? Well, there is an ACI simulator, but we will not be using the ACI simulator available for our EVNG, but instead we will be using our dear friend Cisco D Cloud. And let me be very honest about it. All the labs are doable in our Cisco D Cloud with one excuse of non-availability of data plane, which means I will not be able to provide you to see the communication between the two endpoints. Anything regarding the management plane configuration, yes, we will be able to do, but we are going to mitigate this data plane with the help of my previous classes taken on hardware devices. I will use those classes to demonstrate you the end-to-end communication between the endpoints. We also have a portal wherein you will get to see all the current, latest, as well as previous videos. And in the previous videos, you will get to see not only configuration, but data plane traffic as well. You can answer whenever. Okay, I have answered your question, Ahad. Hope it suffices. Thank you so much, Ahad. Any other question, guys? I'm absolutely fine.
Just a final question, if I may, sir. I understand this is the day one, so I sure hope that we are going to go deep. But I'm very curious because I was assisting with some tax cases, and I spent 4 hours to get a customer and a partner to run a PCAP, like a pack capture in an ACI environment. Is this something that you intend to cover, like troubleshoot in a level of packet capturing?
Okay. For the ACI troubleshooting and operations, there is a different course I am not going to cover in depth about the troubleshooting and packet capture, but I will help you to understand how the traffic flows inside the ACI fabric. For that particular purpose, I will give you certain CLI commands, certain CLI troubleshooting command to understand how the traffic is flowing inside. Well, I do understand there are a lot of packet captures also which can be plugged into the ACI fabric, and we can do it. Currently, I am not covering that particular component for ACI. This is basically ACI implementation and design course, not troubleshooting and operation course.
That's perfect, sir. No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you so much for this question. Guys, any apprehension if you have in your mind, please let us know. And well, ACI day one will not pause at all. We will continue. This is our day one, and then tomorrow day two, and so on. Because it's a long journey, we will not be taking any pause. Monday to Friday morning, 5 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. IST. So in case if you're not comfortable about the time, please let us know. And in case if you happen to miss the class because of any commitment, etc., then you will get to see the class videos as well there on the portal, the access of which will be provided to you once you are enrolled. All right, the course will be assigned to you. Let me stop.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so let me give you a glimpse of the session which we are going to have tomorrow. We are going to talk about the architecture once again. We are going to talk about, tomorrow, the lab setup. This is the lab wherein we are going to have 2 spine switches and 3 how many leaf switches? Or I'm sorry, 2 spine switches and 3 leaf switches. This is not going to be there. But we are going to have our 3 controllers. Right? We are going to talk about this tomorrow. I'll give you a glimpse of it. And the switches which we are going to use is our Nexus 9508 as spine switches in the lab. And our leaf switches are 93, I forgot the model. Okay. The important thing, a very important thing which we will be talking about tomorrow is the multi-pod, multi-site. I have given a discussion. The important thing is, what if one of the controller fails? That is how to troubleshoot it. We will be talking about the APIC controllers in detail, the front, rear, interfaces, and all this thing. And the most important thing is, as I said, outs. What if any one of the controller fails? Right. Well, yes. How to recover a failure of the controller? What important thing to be taken care of before even stepping to do the configuration? Right. That's all. That's all from my side. I have given you a glimpse of what we are going to cover tomorrow as well. Your questions, guys. If still you have any question, any doubt in mind.
Not for me, sir. Just wanted to thank you again. Very educative session. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Walter. I'm pleased that I can deliver you this and hope to have you in this beautiful journey of ours. Guys, thank you very much. If no question, then definitely you can reach out any moment within next 24, 23, 22 hours to our coordinator, Ryan. Any question, if you have any explanation further on you want, that will be provided to you. Plus, if you want the recording of the session. And from tomorrow, I have told you what we are going to do. Thank you very much and wish you a great day to all of you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Such.
Bye. Bye.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pippen. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Wish
Thank
you
you,
a
sir.
very great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wish you the same. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.